I'm going to start my board member comments. I just wanted to direct a question to the Republican caucus, and I don't feel that this is contentious or putting you on the spot. But from what I understand, you feel Ms. Cushman is the representative that you would like on the policy committee. You support the policy she brings forward, and you feel that she is a good representative for your caucus, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess in turn for that, if the Republican caucus supports Ms. Cushman being their representative on the committee, no matter who we have on the committee, they're going to have the same ideals, they're going to have the same policies that they would like to bring forward. So there's 4 of them. Mr. LeBlanc isn't here, but if they feel that Ms. Cushman is the proper representative, she's actually representing their whole caucus. So no matter who we have up there is still going to be representative of how their caucus feels. So that's where I'm leaving that. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, and that's how I feel. We, on our side, put representatives on curriculum and policy who we felt represent our caucus. You guys put Ms. Acree on curriculum. That was wonderful. You put a former teacher on curriculum. Jean loves to talk about curriculum. So I think that when we made these committees, they were, and I said this last time, we put who we believe was going to represent our caucus. So whether you're changing out different members, I think you're still going to have those same beliefs brought forward. And I'm going to stand on how these committees were formed and how we're going to go forward. I understand your frustration, Mr. Hamry. I understand. So I just want everybody to take a deep breath because I think we have work weight that we have to do. And as a chair, I'm trying to keep the work going. And I can't make everybody happy and I can't make everybody meld together. But I listen to both sides and I feel comfortable with who's on the committee because that's who's representing the opposing caucuses. So I just wanted to put that out there. So that's how I feel about that. So a couple other things I wanted to bring up rather quickly. First of all, thank you to the teachers and staffs for Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. I appreciate you always. You've been my village. I really appreciate everything you've done for my families and continue to do for the families in our schools. And this doesn't just stop at teachers. It goes to paras, librarians, lunch aides, secretaries, everyone. The other thing I want to give a shout out to the nurses. The school nurses are amazing, but I also want to give a shout out to nurses in general, especially my favorite nurse, Regina, who is my favorite cardiology nurse at Hartford Hospital. I had firsthand knowledge of how hard it is to be a nursing student today and actually pass the NCLEX. So whoever is thinking about being a nurse or going through nursing school, I give you a lot of credit because I think your college experience has been quite different than other college experiences. And if you're sitting around with flashcards, I've seen it. I've seen it all. So good luck to you. We have one update for SafeGrad. Leslie Lawler messaged and said SafeGrad packets are due by May 26th. If returned by May 12th, students will earn extra raffle tickets. There's a Powder Hollow fundraiser this Friday night. This is an exciting one, senior parents. There's a raffle going on for one front row parking spot for graduation. Tickets are $10 each. Online payments are accepted by Venmo or PayPal, and there will be a live drawing on Thursday, June 1st. Spread the rumor. Not the rumor, spread the message. Maybe you could put it out on the EHS Student Council page or something.
I already texted my mother about that.
I also went to the concert April 26th. It was very short ensembles, but it was beautiful. Again, the talent that we have in our schools is amazing. The other thing I want to talk about is for Kite. Kite recognized I would be remiss in saying this, Kite recognized our very own Dr. Kalnin for his role as a pediatrician, advocate for pediatric mental health, a BOE representative, a strong champion of early childhood education, and dedication to Enfield. There will be a Dr. Kalnin Buddy Bench placed at the Pearl Street Library, and the dedication will be tomorrow, May 10th at 1 p.m. So. That is very well deserved, Dr. Kalnin. I can't be there tomorrow, but I will be there in spirit. But Mr. Ryder said he is going to be there to take pictures and support. So I also want to take a moment to thank the EHS Youth Vote Committee for hosting the program tomorrow evening, the 19th Amendment and its legacy 100 plus years ago. I wish I could go. I was saying to Ms. Pickett and Mr. Ryder today, I think that May 10th became a popular day to just book everything. We have Buzz tomorrow night. We have this tomorrow night. We have a PTO president's meeting. There's budget deliberations. There is a number of things tomorrow night. So I know people are going to do their best to try to be everywhere. So if you don't see us, more than likely we're out at another event because May 10th all of a sudden became extremely busy. I do want to take a moment to talk about the budget. I appreciate Deputy Mayor Sakala. She had sent me some correspondence regarding the recent budget deliberations. And it's true. The Republican caucus wants to cut $1.4 million from the education budget. There's a suggested reduction in CIP projects, and then there's like a town budget cut of $500,000. So it's frustrating to hear that there's a suggestion to reduce the BOE budget by $1 million more than the town budget. So I did a little research, and I asked Mr. Drezik to prepare something. Do you have something?
I think this is what you asked for.
I don't know. Is there a way to have the public see this, or if not, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. All right, so basically this sheet takes a left side comparison of the town budget and the town increase dollar-wise and percentage-wise from 2011 and 2022. The town increased their budget 3.13%. On the right side, it shows the school budget, the school dollar increase, and the school increase percent. The school increased 1.31%. In the meantime, the average 10-year inflation rate was about 2.28, which means that the schools weren't even funded close to the inflation rate. Here's a couple of years I wanted to point out. In 2012, the town had a 1.54% increase and the board had a 0 increase. In 2014, the town had a 2.82% increase and the board had a 0% increase. In 2019, the town had a 4.68 increase and the board had a 0% increase. In 2020, the town had a 10.15% increase while the board had a 0.56 increase. In 2021, the town had a 2.77 increase and the Board of Ed had 0.58. What I also like to point out is, and Mr. Drezik, step in or correct me if I'm wrong, a major factor of EPS staying afloat through those 0 budget increases and through that minimal funding is most of our bargaining units took concessions. And I believe we have a union that's in a concession right now.
We have a union that's currently in their second year of a concession.
These are teachers, administrators.
Just to clarify, all of our unions have taken concessions during this term.
So in the past years, while the town was getting funded, the BOE budget was given 0 to minimal increases. But the only reason we got through it is because our own staff took concessions so that they didn't have to cut programs or constituents. Employees. I'm a townie. I've owned a home since 1996. Here's my question. Over 10 years, the town budget increased $10 million. Our budget increased, $20 million. Our budget increased $10 million. Where did the $20 million go? There have been no added services. There's no more leaf pickup. There's no more adult daycare center. We have to pay for extra tipper barrels. Let's talk about all the new sewer fees. Every budget cycle, both the town and the BOE have mandatory increases and contractual increases, which are salaries, benefits, and health insurance. And that's all we ask for every budget cycle. We just always ask what's mandatory. There's no adding, there's no subtracting of positions and programs. So how does the town cover their budget shortfalls? So I had a great conversation with some of the Democratic town councilors who had longevity on the town council. Capital improvement projects were not funded for the last 10 years. Capital improvement projects like buildings, parking lots, different things like that were taken off and put on the back burner, which includes our school buildings, all to cover budget shortfalls due to mandatory contractual increases. With the lack of capital improvements, we've had OSHA complaints on our school buildings. That's a fact because of leaks. The health claim fund was depleted and had to be built up again in order to be able to pay employee health claims. I knew that. I didn't have to rely on a town councilor to tell me that. Our buildings, parking lots, and playgrounds are all in dire repair. And this is where I get angry. Because I'm already angry, so I guess this is where I get more angry. The blame is falling on the current TC majority and the town manager. This has been 15 years of robbing Peter to pay Paul. This did not happen in November 2021. The town wants us to cut $1.4 million, and they want to cut more capital improvement projects by $500,000.
Not the town.
Oh yeah, Scott wants me to reiterate.
Not the town.
The Democratic Town Council does not support the $1.4 million cut to school education. Granted, they have the votes, but I think people need to know what's being suggested to be slashed from our budget. I think it's important. I'm on a budget. I've put 3 kids through college. I have 2 in there now. Times are tough. Everything is more expensive. Inflation is out of control. For 10 years, I have sat on the Board of Ed and watched the Republican majority on the Board of Ed support cuts to education consistently, year after year after year. Mr. Drezek, what does $1.4 million in cuts look like to this school district, please?
Just off the top of my head, so the average, I mean, we're 85% staff. We're in the people business. Like, we don't produce something physical. So 85% of our budget is tied up in staff and programming, and the other 15%, whereas 20 years ago people would say like construction paper and pencils, that now is turned into these things. And the iPads that our kids have and the licensing and things go like that. So to make a significant reduction like that, it would unfortunately have to be staff members. The average savings of losing a staff member is about $55,000. So $1.4 million would equate to about 26 staff members. If you average, I mean, every staff member is a little bit different. Could be more than that because obviously we have seniority in some of our bargaining units, which means unfortunately first in, first out. So lower, less senior staff members don't make as much. So in order to make up that number, you would need more people. Trying to think about that, but in reality, that's what it would be. Assuming that would be the direction the board wanted to go in the event that cut came to fruition.
The bulk of our money would have to come from staff, or it would have to be a combination of staff and programs.
It would be a vast majority of staff and programs. There is not enough to cover a shortfall like that and just simply supplies because, like I said, it's not like we can just not buy copy paper anymore. We don't buy that much copy paper. 20 years ago, we did. We had that I was in this room when we did that. A lot of the things that we classify as supplies now, they're all contractual obligations. They're leases for iPads. They're licenses for the programs that we use. There's licensing for textbooks now as opposed to just buying physical books. So there's not a lot of discretionary spending outside of staff and program. And when I mention staff, in order to run certain programs, you need people to do it. So it's everything from academic programs to extracurricular programs to things that we celebrate in this room. Those are tough decisions that this group would have to make as to, and going back to where we started this process, there was a reason we changed the format a bit in the budget process this year was to kind of color code it. If you go back to the fuchsia, that's the stuff you're not required to do by law. Unfortunately, the blue, which we don't get a lot of mileage out of, those are things you have to do by law. So that would be the area that we would start looking at. But unfortunately, I think the answer is, yeah, it's going to be people. And it's going to be programs because if I don't have people, I can't run programs.
Now, how does the contract freezing impact the retention and hiring of teachers? Does that, I'm assuming, I can't imagine that helps.
In recruiting and retaining staff is terrible. Sorry, I'm being blunt. Our turnover numbers are higher than they've been, and I can't say I blame. So you have to look at it from an employment standpoint. One of the most expensive parts of doing a collective bargaining agreement are step movement for any of our bargaining units. And when you have step movement freezes, which our teachers have had repeatedly over the last dozen years, hypothetically, you can have a teacher who's been here for 15 years, but they're on step 9 because that's just the way the contract runs. But they have 15 years experience. So if a neighboring town in a teacher shortage, which you're in right now, can say, I can bring you in at step 15, that could be a $30,000, $40,000 pay raise. We can't compete sometimes. And the people who have turned other jobs down, I can't thank them enough because of their loyalty to this community. But in reality, we've lost a lot of people because we're not as competitive.
Does the lack of funding contribute at all to anything to do with the Alliance District?
Yeah, we talked about that last week. Again, it's not, I'm not pointing fingers, but I thought I explained that last week when we talked about the history of the Alliance Network. And when you had asked me for this information, 2 reasons it goes back that far. One, I pulled this directly from the town finance director's website. The budget, anybody can look it up. It's all adopted budgets from, it only goes back to 11 and 12, or else I would have went back further based on the request that the chair had given me. But it also coincides with the conversation we had 2 weeks ago of this, the creation of the Alliance Network was 15 years ago, or I was 12 years ago, I apologize. When the needs of your kids are at a certain level, they require, and I think we all agreed last week or 2 weeks ago, was our kids will require additional resources. When you don't have those resources, it makes getting your kids where you would like them to be and where they need to be more difficult, more challenging, because we don't have the resources to supply, to meet the needs of what the kids have. I know that's sometimes hard for people to hear and understand, but it's reality. It's what it is. A student with higher needs, they require additional resources. And if we don't have those resources, we have to, again, make either concessions, which we've done, or find another way to try to fund it or do the best we can. And that's essentially what happened. But it, like we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, sorry, the accountability index, a big portion of that is based on, I actually left you guys all the document. I think it's on the way. I mean, the actual definition of the CAPS Alliance Network is the most economically disadvantaged towns in the state of Connecticut. I gave it to you. You guys all have it. I didn't write it. That was given to me. So, yeah, there's no coincidence that the 36 districts all have the accountability index based on social and economic status and the community's ability to pay.
So, as we know, the town manager's budget increase was quite high. And as a long-term resident, I see that this high increase request is a result of lack of investment in long-range planning. I don't want high taxes here in Enfield, but I want to at least know where my money's going. This document shows the kind of value and investment we've put in education for the last 10 years here in Enfield. We should have been able to take perhaps small little baby steps over the years to support education, to support our infrastructure, steps to make Enfield better. We sat at that pre-K through modernization committee and they were talking about how education brings people to our town. But not if you're cutting it. One other thing, thank you again to the town councilors that are not supporting this. I appreciate it. It's just very important to know the conversations that they're having in those budget deliberations, because this is upsetting and people need to know. People need to understand. One of the things we talked about in leadership last night was there's a thought that if our test scores were higher, we wouldn't be an Alliance district. That is also not true. So Mr. Drezek, could you answer to that again, please?
As I said, the designation as an Alliance district is a combination of the accountability index, which there's 12 indicators on there, and obviously test scores are just one of them. Clearly we all aspire to have our test scores higher, but all our eggs are not in one basket, and a lot of that. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. By being an Alliance district, again, us excluded because we didn't get any funding, so it's kind of hard to make that argument, but in the traditional sense, when you're designated, one of the attributes of that is that you get money because you don't have it or you haven't spent it. Now, granted, with the exception, this past year we didn't get any, but that's a story we've been having that conversation now since it happened. But part of the reason that there's a grant attached to the designation is because we have shown that we don't have the resources to meet the needs of our kids. So that has been, the nexus of not just what's happened here, but throughout the last year, being associated with other members of the Alliance network, has been the consistent theme. Was those of us who have made progress, we've made progress because we've gotten an increase in resources. And if the state's not going to give it to us, then we're going to have to find a way to make the resources meet the needs of the kids, which is clearly a challenge based on the conversation we're having here tonight.
Right. And lastly, how many positions do we have open that we have had a hard time filling?
Open in total, it's still kind of fluctuating. We're somewhere, depending on like non-certified, we've probably got well over 20, if not 30. We've been shifting some responsibilities in areas where we can retain people and to maybe backfilling some others. And then certified staff members, we've got about 11 right now that we can't fill.
And some of those positions are needed. It's not something that we could not.
Yeah, I mean, I think in years past when we've had some budget challenges, we've looked at attrition. And if the event we have an open position and we don't fill it, that's somebody we don't have to lay off. We'll just pull the Band-Aid off. That this year is going to require some. I apologize, my mint's getting in the way. Allergies are bad. That's going to have some consequences for the community to understand. We have a vacancy in a particular area at the high school. If we don't fill it, it simply means we're not offering that particular program. I won't mention names or programs. That might not be recognized now when the budget is adopted and the gavel's banged, that people are going to think, well, the budget's done, and it's not. It's going to be next September when families show up and realize, well, wait a second, what do you mean my kid's not getting woodshop next year? That's the only reason my son wants to continue in school. I've had that conversation with a parent recently. Well, if I don't have a tech ed teacher, yeah, we save the money, but we're not offering that program. The other piece is, where are we putting these kids? One of the pillars of Enfield High School is we don't have study halls. It's something we're really proud of. And this community banded together to do that. But if we're not replacing teachers, I still need adults to supervise, but we have to start opening that conversation to study halls again. Again, for the positions, if we were to choose to not fill the ones that are at the high school. Some of them are open. I'll be quite honest with you, they're in special education. So for every dollar you save in not replacing a person, add $10 to that, because the process is going to make you pay for it anyway, because those are services you're going to provide to a child one way or another. Whether you have a certified staff member or you don't, you go through the process and it's going to cost you 10 times that to do that. So it's penny wise and pound foolish. If we can find the staff to fill those jobs, that's another challenge. All of this is not helpful for recruiting. The threat of possibly losing staff members, the challenges that we've had by what the concessions over time have taken on staff, it's all a challenge and it's all real. I know everybody's dealing with it, but we lose people every single day to surrounding communities or people who are willing to travel a little bit more because people are paying top dollar right now. And our hands are a bit.
What's a little bit frightening is thinking about first-year teachers listening to this and preparing their resumes.
I have to remind the board, there is a process for non-tenured staff members that the board has to notify them prior to May 1st. And I'll take the heat for this. Prior to May 1st, you have to notify them in writing that they're non-renewed, meaning you can't promise them a contract for next year. And the fallout of that is, in the event you don't notify them prior to May 1st, and you have to lay them off, you still have the ability to do that. The teacher then has the right to ask for a hearing or an explanation as to why they were non-renewed. We've taken a lot of pride in the last 6 years that I've never brought you that list. And I can still see Ms. Hall right now refusing to read the names.
Yeah.
Because we've had an agreement with the town that we weren't going to have to make systemic cuts in order to lose staff members. And that's something that we as staff, as leadership in the district, as well as, our bargaining unit leadership, have been very proud of. We haven't had to do that. You didn't do it this year.
Right.
We missed the deadline. So in the event we do have to lay people off, we're going to need to block off some time because any person who would get unfortunately let go, and I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying that we're talking this as a possibility. You would have to provide those employees the opportunity to be heard as the rationale. Now, it's in the letter, but they do have the right to call an in-person hearing with the Board of Education in the event they want an explanation.
Okay. I would love to hear if you guys support the recommendation coming out of the Republican Town Council. I mean, I don't know if you need more information or you need more time, but I guess I want to know how you guys feel, because we're here fighting for it to not be reduced, and I just don't know how you guys feel behind it.
Tina, in all fairness, we did not know about this. So, Mr. Hamry, your comment about that we knew it and that Janet and I were ignoring it to Zach, I honestly did not know about this 1.4 million cut.
I'm sorry about that, because we spoke about it in leadership last night. So if that information didn't get to you, I apologize.
That would be my fault then, for not communicating 1.4 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
We talked about.
Turn your
the
mic
budget.
on.
Oh. Yeah, we did talk about the budget, but I didn't give the specific number of what that cost.
Okay, that's understandable. If you didn't know, I wouldn't expect an answer. But if you did know, are you not wanting to answer, Mr. Ungary? Or are you wanting to discuss it with your caucus, or if you're supporting the 1.4?
I think I was in the leadership meeting yesterday, and I understand that we had many years of zero, and then we had some years where we did get some things. But as I said earlier, I've got full faith in this process. Okay, and I'd like to see how it's really out of our hands. I mean, we can talk what we want and this and that. None of us want teachers being cut. None of us want our programs being cut. And I can say that. But as far as the dollars and cents I've got full faith they're gonna hammer it out. They're gonna come up with an agreement, and that's just part of the negotiations. And I came out and I said, I don't want to see anybody cut. Okay.
Okay.
And so.
Thank you for
that's
answering.
my position.
All right. That's all I have for this evening. Moving on to 10.